Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming on this Tuesday morning. And welcome to our first proposition of this semester. And we are very happy that people from outside of SSA are here and have shown interest. And before I begin, I'd like to just give a little brief summary about what we envision proposition to be. So it's a faculty seminar for ongoing research in the fields of architecture, design, planning. And it's put forth in a 20-minute presentation by one of our faculty members. So the faculty of either Sushant School of Art and Architecture, Sushant School of Design, or Sushant School of Planning and Development. It's a closed group for research scholars and faculty. And the ideas presented are to be then discussed and debated freely by the audience. And we imagine this to be a place of lively debate and flow of ideas from multiple perspectives. So welcome, everyone. Before I introduce her, I'd like to just say a very, very brief but heartfelt thanks to our proposition team. That is Sobia, first and foremost, and Sachin, who have worked tirelessly on bringing this together, and we hope to make it grow. Thank you to our Dean, Vibhuti, and Director of the 3 schools. Thank you to Jayanti, Dean of SSD, who has also been working with us on text and posters and all. Himanshu, our Associate Dean, and we've had inputs from Bhavna, Suruchi Modi, Prabh, and Ajit Kalia. So really all the 3 schools have come together to make this proposition a big success. And in its new avatar, we'd like to start. So Tanaya is a PhD student at the Sushant School and an associate professor here. She holds a bachelor's and master's degree from Nagpur University, and her doctoral research is titled A Study of Climate Responsive Vernacular Architecture of Bikaner. She has published in journals, international, national, and has also authored chapters in books. She's been chairperson of the Board of Studies at several universities in India and has more than 20 years of work experience and teaching experience. Last week, it was a very proud moment for us at SSA. One of our first PhD student, Parul Munjal, actually was declared a doctorate. And we are hoping that Tanaya is going to join those ranks very soon. So welcome, Tanaya, and yeah, we can begin.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome all to the first proposition. So I'll not take much time. I'll start with the presentation so that we have more time for discussing it out, because I'm really itching to discuss these questions with everyone and get the valuable feedback. So is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's come up.
It's come, okay. So yes, so I'm nearing, as Radha has mentioned, I'm one of the PhD scholars and I'm nearing completion. My pre-sub is already done. So this is one topic which has now got my fancy for is Havelis, because that is one topic that I've been researching, I've been studying for my PhD. But understanding the Haveli form and how this narrative really builds into thermal comfort and lifestyle. So this is one topic that I'd like to take forward, and like your inputs, we can have a debate on this further on. So lives are
Sorry,
fast
just
become.
excuse me. I'm not able to see the entire screen. Is it my problem or I'm?
Yes, now this is right. Tanaya, that is an issue. If you could just, I was going to bring it up as soon as she. Thanks, Srijani.
Is it now better?
Yes, now it is. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So just to set a context to it, so our lives are becoming far instrumented, interconnected, and intelligent, and so as our homes and towns. What better way, like today we are on an online platform from the comfort of our homes, all deliberating on one topic. And so slowly with this COVID situation, the entire house is becoming one, taking a new transformation with technology help. So change is the only constant. We cannot hold back time or choose to live in nostalgia. We have to adapt to it. So there are lots of learnings from the past which can be applied now and for future, for a better future. So taking this thread forward, uh, so Bikaner, most of you, Bikaner is a small town in Rajasthan. It's towards the northwest of India, and it is very close to the arid desert. So it has a very thriving population. I'll be telling you about it shortly. So as it was mentioned, if dreams can cast in stone and if stones can sing, they would be like the exterior and interiors of Bikaner Haveli. This was written way back about the intricate architecture of Bikaner, and it really holds true. But slowly, as nothing remains the same, the Havelis are now, or the town is now slowly transforming, and how it is changing, you can see in the right picture. Slowly, modern construction is coming up, and old Havelis are becoming jewels in between these beads, I'll say. So slowly these jewels are vanishing and the regular construction is coming up. So that was quite a concern and my interest for my research. So just to set the context and to orient you all as to what Bikaner really is, because when we hear the word as Haveli, it brings to mind a big palatial house, but it can be a small house, it can be a big palatial house, it can have many courts. But in Bikaner specifically, if we compare to the other establishments of Jaipur or Jaisalmer, which are much more featured and documented, the Bikaner Havelis are very small. Uh, they are very compact, and the architecture is very intrinsic to their region. So that we'll be exploring. There are certain governing factors as to why this typology has emerged in such a manner. So you can see there are intricately carved Havelis. You can see the influence of European Art Deco, Art Nouveau movement. You can see the Rajputana style. You can even see the European style coming up into these. So this is very interesting how at one location such influences have come up and they are coexisting in that location. So these are the Havelis. Then suddenly you will find the third image like these, the modern houses being constructed in place of these Havelis. So the Havelis have been bought down and the construction has taken up. So you can see coexistence and in the same dense jaw-like fabric. It's a very dense tooth-like fabric that one tooth is, one Haveli is removed and a new construction is coming up. So there are lots of transformation that is taken up. The cityscape, there are small shops. The infrastructure of the city is requiring lots of work to be done on the civil front. So mesh of wires and cables and road is being digged up. So lots of transformation which the civil infrastructure is required has been taking place in the city. So now if you look at, this is how the city appears. So there are modern construction, there are ancient Havelis, there are shop fronts, the street, all the chaos. So this is the general, like how the renovation work or dilapidation or some Havelis which are non-occupied. So lots of transformation is taking place in the city itself. So understanding, like how I said, I'll be looking at thermal comfort and lifestyle and how the Haveli architecture or how this question really ties up both the things together. Now, comfort is a shared function. It can be just measured physically in terms of, say, the physical parameters of temperature and humidity and the wind, or the physics of thermal comfort can be studied. But then it is to be studied in the building context, how the architects or how the people responded and how they built the shelter in the particular climatic zone, and how the human, the inhabitant of these structures really interfaces with all of this. So with clear parameters and applications defined for each of these heads, we need to see how one has a bearing on another. So this really looks at the complex dynamic relationship of interdependencies. Now there is lots of interdependency, back and forth play, and a cyclic nature of change which one brings on the other is terms of climate, the built envelope, and the human factor. Now, change in the build from a specific regional vocabulary to a much more universal vocabulary is taking place. And slowly we see the regional becoming more universal in design. And the lifestyle modifications from a local to a global. Now, it's very difficult for anyone to stay because we all are changing and change is constant. We say that we are progressing and every change is a progress from what we were previously, but we really need to see how this progress and how these dependencies create an impact on the other situation. So lots of researchers and anthropologists and architects have written about the shelter and society. Amos Rappaport also mentioned house form and culture, where he emphasizes that the beauty of the vernacular style and more the environmental technologies and social context in which they were built in. So that's very important. Now the house form or the Haveli form was totally derived from their climate, the culture, the way of life of a life of the building occupants and way they were using it, the purpose they were using it, the customs, the tradition, the environment and the locally available material, whatever resources, whatever were the influences that they wanted to portray, and the human behavior towards the environment. It clearly reflects in terms of their culture and tradition and the respect for or the worship uh, philosophy. So thermal comfort, there are now modern standards like ASHRAE and National Building Code and all of these paradigms, they also give a definition and now they have come down or boiled it down to a simple temperature measurement of 19 to 26 degrees centigrade. Now, is this the finite number? Is this the number which really makes us comfortable? Today, we are having such morning, the morning breeze was such a welcome and slight rain. It has really brought down the temperature and it's a very pleasant day today. But again, if we look at the temperature reading, it might not confine to these temperatures as yet. But yes, we are feeling comfortable. And so there are lots of adaptations that a person makes. Now, these can be termed as adjustments, habituations, or acclimatizations. Now, knowingly, unknowingly, we are always doing this in the way we adapt to the new situations. It can be in terms of behavior, can be in terms of psychological makeup that we have, or it can be the long-term exposure to a certain situation that makes us habitual or we get acclimatized to the new situation. And thermal comfort, because now we are looking in terms of the human aspects. So the human really has to see the environment, the seasonal, the microclimate, and the entire aspect. And at a personal front, so there could be a play of age, gender, state of health, state of mind, the work nature that we are all performing, the long-term and the short-term thermal history that we have been experiencing. So again, if we try to divide thermal comfort again into the psychological factors, the physiological factors, then the physical factors. So there are very few things that can be measured, few things that have to be qualitatively understood and then compared or seen the impact of one on the other. So Haveli is a very good example of understanding the interplay of all these factors and how these factors are slowly getting minimized or the dependency on one another is slowly getting reduced into the modern setup with the mechanical available instruments and the human taking superseding and controlling the environment that he is in. So Bikaner, just the geographical attributes for Bikaner. So it's in the hot and arid zone, hot and dry zone of India. So it is one of the harshest climate. It's It's a northwesterly district. And if you look at the GeoVi psychometric chart also, if some place is in the hot and dry zone, the orange zone, then it is in the temperature and humidity and air movement considerations also, it is to the far extreme. It requires lots of effort from, I'll say, the three skins, that is the shelter, the clothing, and the person, to bring the state into a comfortable zone. So simply, if you look at Bikaner, this is a 100-yearly average for the Bikaner temperature. So if you see the months of April, May, June, July, they are very warm. If you look at the humidity level or the raindrop, it's very scanty rainfall and it is a very harsh climate. So if such a striving or a thriving population has been surviving in such harsh conditions, then slowly something they have done right, or they have really understood the climate and the situational or the contextual understanding has been taken, and the architecture or the build form has been designed incorporating all these aspects. Now, if you see, or if we map the climate or the temperatures for Bikaner on the psychometric chart, it gives a 21% comfortable of all the 8,000 hours, the entire 1 year. If we see the hours in hours calculation, so 21% of the time it falls into the comfort zone, and otherwise 79% of the time it is uncomfortable. So it is a real challenge. It is one of the harshest place on earth where the solar radiation level is almost 95%. And this solar radiation with minimum sky cover exposes the soil and the people to very harsh sunlight. The architecture really had to be very smart for a thriving population to have houses around 5 centuries old, and they have been a very thriving society. So lots of articles and like Scopus, how did I carry on these research for thermal comfort, looking at research papers which were done on thermal comfort, but most of the ones that I found were on the physical aspect of thermal comfort, measuring or decoding how these thermal comfort measurements or how the architecture really helped. But now, when I did my study and I was looking at or interacting with the humans or the inhabitants of these Havelis, a very different picture came to mind where they said they are really not very satisfied with the existing Haveli. And almost 90% of the owners of these old houses or the Havelis wanted or strived for getting a new modern house. So looking at these various physical parameters like the heat stress index, so they all talk about a specific temperature measurement. And if the temperature exceeds, then they put it into various categories like extreme caution, danger, sunstroke, heat stroke. So all of these are talking very specific on numbers. So wet bulb, globe temperature, and all these are again measurement systems where the temperature is taken and it has been classified into categories. The mean radiant temperature is how much the actual heat inside a space is being calculated on. Uh, so looking at the Western formulas, the tropical summer index is the best suited for hot and dry region. And this really doesn't get into the norm. So tropical summer index was developed, and this prescribes the optimum condition, and it was based on the outside temperature. So the temperature inside to be called comfortable has to be in relation with the temperature outside. So it is say 27.5 degrees and generally between 25 to 30 for the Indian context. And also if it is in the summer, very extreme summer months, this 25 to 30 can also be a little variant depending upon the outside condition. So we need to study these. So thermal comfort models. Now people have prescribed various thermal comfort models, like Fanger has developed the PMV and the PPD. So predicted mean vote and the predicted percent discomfort. So on this scale, if you see, this is a very widely used scale. Even ASHRAE uses this scale for its measurements. So 0 or the center reading being the neutral, and +1, +2 is slightly warm, warm, hot, and so on. And similarly, -1, -2, -3 can be the towards the coolness. Now, the ideal way is to bring down the internal or the MRT for the spaces near to the neutral, and this should be reflected in terms of temperature and also emphasized or reinforced by the perception of the person who's taking these readings. And so the formula is very complex, so I had to write a program in Visual Basic, so as a macro in Excel, and then get these done. So PPD can also be calculated on a similar formula base, and we can plot it on a graph. So once we plot on these readings on a graph, it becomes much more easier for us to understand. So again, these can be for individual spaces, but as a house, as a whole structure, then there had to be a rating which can derive and tell us whether this house, as compared to some other structure, is really efficient or not, or is it matching to the thermal comfort index. So difference in uncomfortable hours outside versus inside, if this formula is developed and then it is done for the entire structure, it can help us compare both these criteria. So now with this whole physical aspect of thermal comfort and how these measurements were done and taken, so I will like here to add that the Haveli, which is now being transforming into the contemporary house, there could be various reasons why the people are wanting this. It could be because of education. Most of the people are moving out of Bikaner and they are going to bigger cities like Jaipur, Jodhpur for their education. And when they come back, they really want to adjust. They feel difficult to adjust in the old Haveli and they push for getting a new house. Then jobs, because it was an erstwhile trading town, but now it is a small medium town in Rajasthan. It has not very much industries, so people are moving out of Bikaner for jobs. So once they move out of jobs to bigger cities all over India and also abroad, so then when they come back, the association of the same Haveli is not what they had experienced in their childhood. Now, global fashion and global trends, so people aspiring to copy or to have the comfort which they are experiencing outside in their native towns or for their parents, is also one that is forcing them to change over to the contemporary house. So the mechanical devices and the mechanical comfort equipments are now coming into the household. So with small one alteration of installing a geyser to installing the water purifier, the kitchen slightly rising from the ground to the countertop, and slowly part by part the house starts to transform and the equipments govern the process. Then the technology is getting into the household, because lots of feedback from the occupant survey gave us that television is one pain area that they have in the Haveli, because installation of a television into a very small room where the widths and sizes are not fit for having a bigger size television, they really feel, oh, I can't uh, employ that into my house. The Wi-Fi router doesn't work very well because the Wi-Fi signals, because of the thick walls, the Wi-Fi connection is very poor. So these are the technical challenges, and people really feel bogged down with this modern age technology and not getting this into their old house. So who has the right to choose? If I can afford, then why not? So these are the questions that they pose. Why should I be staying in this Haveli if my electricity bill increases because the new house is not going to be that thermally comfortable? But the bigger question is, what are the things, intangible things, that these people will be losing behind if they all start moving to the new houses? But who is the custodian? I, as an outsider or as an academician, I stay in a modern house, in a modern town, in a big city. I talk about these people and I tell them that you have so much of resource value, you have a living heritage that you are encompassing, you should take it forward. But am I the person, or what is the way forward? So, some questions we'll be discussing further on. So this is how dense the fabric of Bikaner is, and between these there are small havelis or houses, and there are modern houses which have been coming up in this place. So for all my physical measurements and other things, I had taken few important dates in a year because these were the crucial points on which I should have all my measurements of wind, of the light factor, the temperature readings, and all of those. So these were the key. Otherwise, there are the entire year, but these are the key dates because the sun changes its direction at this point. So lots of instruments that were employed were the data loggers for temperatures, the anemometer for the wind, and the lux meters for the light conditions. And a series of readings were taken and the graphs were plotted. Now, if you look at the Havelis, so the street widths are very narrow. So most of my images are not full scale because you could not capture from that much width the entire house. So if these are the houses, the exterior view of the houses, and then you can see the interior. The modern day dining table is squeezed into the veranda area. The ceilings are very beautifully carved. They have wooden ceilings. The staircase are very narrow and high, which are very difficult to traverse. So these are the issues which the Haveli owners described in their meeting. So if we look at the plan, so just to make you understand how the Haveli structure works. So Haveli form, like the word has come from Havala. So that means partition. So this house has got various, house form has got subdivisions made. It can be in terms of activity, occupation, gender, and patterns in which they are being used. And this house form is an inward looking plan. So you have the courtyard. If you have a look in Bikaner, this is a very unique part that the courtyards are very small because the climatic consideration is so harsh that you cannot let the sun in for a very long time. So as compared to other places, the courtyards are very small and narrow. They are used only for ventilation and daylighting for a brief period of time. So they have a basement floor. They have the plinth is raised up. Usually, most of the people in Bikaner were traders, and the lower floor or this lower floor was being used for storage because it is easy from the road level to bring the storage into the lower basement level. And the upper floors, the ground floor was the main central hub, and the first floors and the terrace floors were used for other activities, or when there were lots of guests, the upper floors were being used for. So if you look at the general sections of the house, so these are very dense. So if you see, there is a next one abutting it. So and the street widths are very narrow. This we have seen so to minimize the sun input into the courtyard or into the Haveli. So understanding the Haveli form, we can do more. The construction also is very thick. So if this is an image from a rundown Haveli which was dismantled and taken away. So the wall thickness is almost as thick as 800 mm and the slab is 300 mm, which is again lined by a wooden fall ceiling or a wooden ceiling which acts as an insulating materials as well. Now there are these modern houses which are also coming up in these situations which are totally devoid. So there are these outward looking plans, but as you see, the plot size is very tight. It doesn't have a courtyard at all. And if you look at these images, they are using daylight, the totally devoid of daylight, and artificial lighting is being used in the daytime as well. Now, if the measurements and the data that I had taken and compared it, so I'm just going to show you a few of these graphs just to understand how thermal comfort index. So if thermal comfort index for Bikaner is taken from 25 to 30 degrees, this is the band of comfort. And these graphs are plotted for, say, the Haveli. So if this is the outside temperature, then the red one, sorry, is the courtyard, the living room, and the bedroom. So, So in the month of March, how these are being compared to, and similarly, if you look at the contemporary house, these two are for the contemporary house. This is for March and this is for June. So if you see June as an extreme month of summer, so here if you see that the habitable space, that is the living room and the courtyard and the living room and the bedroom is almost within the comfort zone. Whereas if you look here, the bedroom is in the comfort zone for most of the time, but otherwise in the contemporary house or here, the bedroom are very rarely used throughout the day. It's only for night purpose that they are using, and most of the time they are in the courtyard in the Havelis or in the living room for the modern houses. Now here is one aspect when we compare the predicted mean vote and the predicted percent discomfort. So taking the clothing factor as one. So as I was telling you, as it should be nearing the neutral level. But if in the month of March, if you look at the vernacular Haveli, you can see that it goes up to slightly warm and then towards hot. But this is for the living room, which is exposed to the sunlight from the street side. So if this is the kind of exposure that the vernacular Haveli has, otherwise it is lying between slightly cool and mostly into the slightly warm range. Similarly, if you look at the PPD and the PMV for the contemporary house, the new modern house that they are constructing, it goes on to severely warm and hot in this area. So it's reaching up to 3.5. So which makes these very unbearable into the summer months. Like it's just start of the summer in the month of March. Now, similarly, if we look at for June, you can see the comparison, and this is taking the CLO value as 1, but yes, adaptation by humans to a summer clothing will happen. So taking the clothing factor to 0.5, and you can see this is almost in the variable range of slightly cool to slightly warm, whereas this is to the warm to the hottest range of even 4 reading. So even clothing modification doesn't make the interiors comfortable in the contemporary house. So this series of measurements were done for 3 vernacular houses or 3 Havelis and for 3 contemporary houses as well. And then they were plotted taking or comparing how they are faring in terms of the outside condition and which one is more comfortable. So a higher value of difference between the uncomfortable hours outside versus inside. Here I found that the vernacular or the Haveli form was getting to an average of 3.712, which is quite high as compared to the average of the contemporary house as 1.9. And this the people were also experiencing. So now how are these all measurements which I physically have calculated and experienced from these case studies has resulted, and what is the takeaway from these? So looking at this one matrix which I developed in my research was that the weather and the climate has got lots of impact on all these attributes, be it the shelter, the design, the occupation of the people, the food that they take, the dress that they wear, recreational activities, and the technology of what they have employed in their livelihoods. So if all of these parameters which result into their well-being and further on as a collective group becomes the societal beliefs and the tendencies or the whereabouts for a community at large results in the lifestyle of the people or of the region. But now with each one of these, each column getting transformed, like the house form is getting transformed. Looking at the previous graph of say 3.71 and nearing 2, the difference is only of 1 point something as a measure. But then if the house form is getting transformed, it results in lots of technological inputs getting added to the house to make it more comfortable. The people, the occupations have changed. The patterns where the early morning lifestyle, where the shops used to open early morning and then afternoons they were closing down, has all changed. The food habits which were seasonal, which were taking into account the local produce, what is it can be governed by the custom, it can be governed by the religion or the rituals which were happening in that month. Like there is uh, so they used to make barley rab, which was very useful. And in certain seasons, certain type of food quality was being used. But now with packaged food and mass production and supply chain getting so strong, all kind of food variants are available in that place, and people are switching. So these smaller attributes are also adding to the discomfort or the comfort factor. Now, the dressing style was also native. You can say it had a cultural influence, but I'll say the culture is also governed by the climate and the local available resources. So earlier, the people used to wear, generally men used to wear whites and light clothes, cotton. Women used to wear bright colors and suti and kota and all those fabrics, which is now taken over by denim. The older generation really had an issue with the denim, and they were saying these young children of the house, they don't want to wear anything else but denim. And in that kind of sweaty climate, in that kind of harsh climate, denim was really not a very good material to be wearing. The recreation prospects, like there are these in the month of Jesh, that is currently in the month of June as for the English calendar, when it is really very hot and sultry in that part of region. So the ladies used to go out into the bagichis, which were small gardens where usually bagichi had a big peepal tree, and the old ladies used to gather under the peepal tree in the afternoons and tell stories. So this is a common practice which they have been following. But now with the air conditioner and the television coming in, the entire life cycle is getting governed by the television per se. So those activities have been slowly reduced, or the people sitting out in the veranda or in the evening climbing up to the terrace or sleeping on the terrace at night has really now taken a back seat with the air conditioner coming in. So there are lots of such traditions, and like if you see Akshay Tritiya, it falls in month of April, May, and it is one time when they have a tradition of donating umbrellas, slippers, or footwear, and changing the house pots, the earthen water pots. So that is one custom which they follow for Akshay Tritiya, and it is so much apt in conjunction with the climate and the current scenario as well, because that's the time water is being conserved. They put out water for birds, and most of the houses or the city squares had a hoard made in for cattle and other animals to drink water. So these are smaller changes or adaptation. Like the modern house, they are not making that house anymore. It's not part of their elevation. So it's slowly eroding off. Then the attribute of distributing pankha or panki, it is called. So in this summer months, most of the shops carry small hand fans, woven hand fans, cloth hand fans, so which are given to elders and which are shared between the family. So this is also a tradition which the people used to follow. And now, like I'll say, it's like the domino effect. If one peg falls, the others are started falling down. So this complex matrix is now changing. So these are talking about all these attributes, the physiological, psychological, climate, design, and there are various models which have been prescribed as to how behavioral changes affect the thermal comfort or the notion of thermal comfort, and the other adjustments follow suit. So Didier is doing lots of research. He's in Australia and he's done lots of research into the clothing aspects as well as the behavioral, psychological, and how back and forth these play. Somebody going into these circumstances or these regions will not feel comfortable even in the Haveli because the acclimatization process has not taken place. So it is our fancy. So we really can't uh, adjust in one day to a new set of scenarios. So these are complex matrix, and how the choices made by an individual really impacts his comfort. So in 2001, this is a complete coping up mechanism that the body does, as well as mentally, as well as physically, and behavioral aspects also. So how do we change our clothes to suit a particular season or the climatic consideration, the change in food habits, the mental makeup, and then we can say that the homeostasia or a sense of pleasure or sense of adjustment has taken place. So these are just random images how the vernacular Havelis of the Bikaner and how they have been intelligent enough. Like this window is so far intelligent as compared to the aluminum windows that we have. It has the louvers for ventilation. It has the wooden part which lets out the sunlight. It has small colored glass which lets in some light. So it really caters to the need of the individual, and how these windows are long and narrow, that it brings ventilation to the lower level of the floor. The various, how a dry, dull, arid region has brought in colors, and the influences of the travelers as well as the traders who visited the world over can be seen into the interiors and the frescoes of these places. The culture and the food habits, the clothing, like this is the dolls for the Gangor Puja. You can see that they are wearing a suti muslin innerwear. Now they'll be having clothes on top of it, but yes, you can see even the nitty-gritties in terms of clothing for the doll. Suti is the cloth that they use. Rich ghee and sweets, which are long lasting, because mostly people used to be travelers. So all their food items are of such nature that they can last a while. Heavy on spices. Now, this is the current state of the Havelis. So many of the people have left them and they have gone to other cities and they are lying there as barren. The ones which are being occupied, they are being exploited for space, and lots of constraint in terms of fitting the modern gadgetry and finding the equipment into these small Havelis. The courtyards being covered up, and because of the pigeon and theft, to stop the theft and other problems. Haveli is being dismantled and taken away to newer parts. So you can see the actual construction and the rich heritage that they have just dismantled and now shipped to Europe or to other parts of India. So lots of adaptation strategies which a lifestyle changes brings into to reach a state of thermal comfort is one clear aspect. Now, how this data and information and this knowledge can be made into wisdom, and then it can become a value system. Now, I don't know, I'm stuck at a point where as an architect, I feel something that needs to be preserved. But as a human, why are we burdening the few with the responsibility of holding to the past and preserving it for future generation? So the final slide here is how we can develop a dynamic benchmark for India, because India is a very rich, diverse country. And this is just a case of Bikaner. If we move around in India, we have lots of interesting places and interesting cases with similar interdependencies and indigenous knowledge abundantly available. And how can we develop this dynamic system, and how we can take it forward, that without compromising or forcing it onto the natives, and how it becomes a practice and a part, I'll say, gets incorporated into the global vision as well. So I don't know. I'm stuck here with this approach because it really bothers me to see that we like that. We go to Rajasthan for a 2-day trip, for a week trip, and we really enjoy it, click pictures, sweat it out, use the cap. We have seen the East Asian travelers moving around with hand fans around the place. But yes, we want to get away from it after the 4th day, and it is not our part. It's only there in images. But the people who are staying there have to, they are the ones who should hold it the way it is for future generations to come. So I like to open it to questions, suggestions, and discussion. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanaya. Big thanks for agreeing to go first at proposition and for presenting such a wonderfully detailed and topic. So I'd like to open it up for questions. Tanaya has already, given us some threads that we can perhaps address, or any other questions. I'd request the speakers, if anyone has a question, to please turn on your mics maybe one at a time, or you can also type it in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that. Is there anyone who'd like to either address Tanaya's concerns or ask a question at this point?
Can I go first?
Yeah, please, Himanshu. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks, Tanaya, for that elaborate presentation. But when I saw the presentation did not emphasize, partially yes, it did, but did not really emphasize on the traditional techniques, traditional methods. So one area to perhaps if you can elaborate in detail whether these traditional style methods for the region was analyzed, and to what level, so what is the percentage component of this traditional method being incorporated in your study? Because I feel that for that particular region, any modern technology perhaps will not work. I don't know. And if it is working, it may contribute to other aspects of raising the temperature or raising the surrounding temperature. So there are these two areas that we need to look in, that what's the component of traditional style, because people have been living in that region for centuries and they must have dealt with this scenario earlier also. So did people who are currently staying went with that older and ancient technology to suit their environment, or they are relying on the modern technology that is prevailing in the urban as well as rural scenario?
There is, I take in your point, but yes, I had done an exhaustive study on the passive design features and all the architectural inputs towards climate mitigation that these people or the civilization or these native peoples had done. That is already a part of my thing, but today for this proposition, with the given time, I already exceeded a little time.
Okay. So maybe one line over there, if you could mention that what component, what percentage of those ancient technologies were being analyzed?
Yeah. So I think the calculation for the difference between outside and inside temperature was one place where, because of the passive techniques and the employment of indigenous material and construction techniques, they reached up to that kind of comfort level within the Havelis, which was not present in the contemporary house, which I got from the physical primary experiment. So, because I wanted to take this presentation towards the more social aspect of what next, what is in store for them, because from having a place with 350 Havelis at one point in time when I started in 2012 to a meager of 150 odd remaining now. So there is a process of fast, I'll say, dismantling and selling out. So people really want to get over with this. They call it the white elephant. They can't do anything with it, and they are stuck with it. and it is much more lucrative to dismantle it, take the money from the facade which is very beautiful and which gets sold for 30-40 lakhs rupees, and in that money, with the land is theirs, they make a new house. Sometimes it saves them for some business and other proposition and inheritance also. But yes, it really pains to see over a period of 5-6 years how this entire system has been changing. The whole lifestyle has changed. Now you find modern way of living, the clothing pattern has changed, the food habits. It's only at the festivals and occasions where they return back to their native. So it's not wrong. I don't say it's wrong. We also do the same thing at modern cities and towns. But it really is who is the custodian. Like I'll just like to because I'm not getting a way forward into this because I studied their custom, studied the plight of the people who are actually staying there.
Perhaps at policy level, something could be done. I mean, of course, the technology, ancient technology, and all those things are prevailing, and maybe the current society is not implementing those ancient technology, traditional technologies, or they have forgotten. So perhaps at policy level, one can, whatever exhaustive study that you have done, you can prepare a table, and then that could be incorporated in the policy that any new development taking place must adhere to this idea of revisiting Haveli or rebuilding the Haveli to its newer standards and modern standards that they have. So I think only policy level can, at policy level and at program level, it could be incorporated. So today in the afternoon, there is a webinar being presented by PwC and BEE, and they are also focusing on bringing awareness for energy efficient residential building. So that is in place, but how many and what government really applies it, it's debatable, and how they are running the pilot programs, it's debatable. So maybe at that level you can add into it, and only then it can work. I don't know. Maybe at policy level that needs to be examined further.
Yeah, it can be taken forward on that line.
Himanshu, that webinar is at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
everyone please attend it.
No.
I think
Thanks,
that's
Sachin.
a good platform to raise all these issues, because the government officials from Ministry of Power is going to be there and presenting the Eco-Niwas Sanhita that they have prepared for Delhi. So,
But
yeah.
I'd like to add, because yes, that platform, and there are various agencies who are promoting passive design features in architecture. But here I'm talking about the intangible or the intrinsic, which is not written, which cannot be physically mapped. It is a way of life which I think nobody can force on someone to follow. So how is a policy, like suddenly with this COVID situation, going native, going local, Gharelu Nuske in terms of Ayurveda and other things have been brought about. But so one movement cannot change. Yes, because I had a Marwadi friend and she used to get a different kind of dal every day because the calendar was made to follow. So our traditional knowledge is having that kind of thing as per days and the colors that one needs to wear for a certain thing, and we are all forgetting. It's not part of any curriculum. And slowly those things are going to get lost over a period of time. How one holds together the intangible, the thing that we really can't see or hold in our hand, it is experience.
Perhaps some, I don't know. I'm just following the train of thought here, that no one thing leading to another. So if we incorporate some idea at policy level, and then that policy obviously will come down to community level, and then community in tangent with what they were practicing earlier can formulate some kind of a guideline, some kind of a room where these things are promoted, and against that promotion or application, the community will get incentives. And that's how most of the pilot programs across the country, they are working, that some kind of incentive is given. And when that incentive, whether you are, if you are building a new house, will get incentive, and following pointers will have to be looked into. When while you are living in the community outside of your neighborhood or sector will be designed or will be developed in this fashion. So then that will cover your intangibles, which you think that we are all slipping away and uh, not being followed, or people have forgotten. I don't know. Then it just spreads out.
Yeah, it can be.
And maybe others would also like to add further.
Yes.
Don't want to make this as a one-on-one dialogue.
Yeah. Does anyone else? Thanks, Himanshu. But does anyone else have questions? I know that we have class. Probably some of us may have class to go to, but those who can stay, I'd ask you to probably, if you can stay on and continue the conversation. Then I hope you don't have class.
No, at
Okay.
11.
Okay, we have a question in the chat box. I'm going to read it out. This is from Parul Munjal. So she says, the economic benefits are taking precedence at present in decision making. For the traditional built form to continue, the owners need to continue to see value, that's social, economic, etc. in it. Do you find any such stakeholders who appreciated the value? Okay.
Yes, Parul has put it right. The economic value is far much more, which the owners are seeing right now. But there are people who really want and are in love with the structure, and they are seeing lots of value in what they are inherited or what they are possessing. But they do not have any way forward, because it's Bikaner as such is not on the tourist map. It doesn't form into that triangle which usually the foreign tourists follow. They are slowly incorporating homestays in their havelis, which give them some revenue and which always brings them back to their wow feel. So, but again, apart from the homestay, people are not getting into any ideas as to how they can economically make it sustainable or even get revenue to maintain these havelis, because these are really expensive. Now, with the dying craft, the craftsmen, to find an authentic craftsman who can repair these havelis is also becoming a challenge. So they are wanting lots of business proposition. People have started with the food walks, because Bikaner is very famous for its culinary and savory dishes. They have started with morning heritage walks with the remaining Haveli sector. But again, homestays is the only thing that they are getting. Because traditionally, not very much craft is also coming out of that place. Usta craft is one thing, but again, it is done on facades and it is patronized. It cannot be taken away home. They are not finding. So lots of product design opportunities are also there where people can get into it. But again, people say that my next generation is going to, they feel very proud in saying, oh, he's in Delhi, he's working in Gurgaon, he's moving out. So how he's really, as a, I think, heritage perspective, Parul, then this can be a one good way. What are the other opportunities other than homestays that they can get into? Because they're not really finding clues.
Yeah. Thanks, Tanaya. Parul, I hope that somewhat answered your question.
Right. I think that gives a slightly positive kind of a perspective to the whole thing, because if there are people who actually value and want to continue, what is there, even if it is a lesser percentage, in any case, I think it's quite evident that everybody has to come to terms with the fact that everything cannot be saved and cannot be kept for posterity. But even if there are such few people, I think then in such case, definitely there could be some incentivization that could support, and I think Rajasthan government in general is quite
Quite.
quite forward in terms of incentivizations and so even in Jaipur, lots of incentives. If you're using traditional materials for repair, you get incentives. So those things definitely. Then if there are people who want to continue, I think there's a huge kind of potential to look at possibilities, creative possibilities beyond homestays, or just expanding the idea of the homestays or whatever it may be. I think as a whole, as a matrix, I mean, in terms of tourism and livelihoods and creative design solutions, all I think would play a role over here, certainly. And the motivation, of course, is the most important thing, which is a positive sign, I would say. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. Prab has a comment, I think. She's saying it's difficult to ask a community to not adopt more comfortable and easy things. The way out could be to show them advantages and disadvantages of each, advantages of continuing with the traditional. The change is inevitable, as you mentioned in the very beginning. Isn't it important that in order to maintain the continuity of the intangible aspects, these be imagined in the children rather than enforcing through policy? So
Yes.
I think it's a more open-ended question. And Vibhuti has a question. Isn't the problem in the way one explains traditional wisdom in... Wow, this is a big one. So yeah, the vocabulary of traditional wisdom. Yeah. Would you want to...
Yes, it is a big take on this, because traditional wisdom is something it's now being questioned in modern science. Most of it is also proving true in the science fraternity as well. But yes, something which science proves is not taken down well unless it has that wisdom of the ancient and comes from generations. So some things get incorporated into our daily lives much more if it is being passed on from generation. But for the younger generation, it is sometimes very pertinent to explain to them the scientific background of these practices, or I'll say way of life. But again, it should not come as a preaching or as a class of learning or way of life that you need to live or need to lead. So I don't know how subtly it can be brought into the system. So like the hand fan has gone. I don't have a matka at my place still in Gurgaon. I can go and buy one. I don't have one. It is consuming. It will take space in my room. There's no space for it. So all these things play in my mind. I know it, but I don't do it. So it's like, Vibhuti can explain it better how to go about it.
No, it is a longer debate and something I don't think there is a clear-cut answer to it. But of course, one has to, in a way, through the way in which one explains traditional wisdom, resist using modern scientific terminology, because I'm reminded of the recent kerfuffle that Ramdev had with the scientific community when he claimed that he had made a drug for curing coronavirus. The problem was not with what he was offering as something one can use. The problem was in the vocabulary of two things. One, which the scientific community pounced on, of course, because it threatens their research as well, and threatens and also undermines in many ways. So the two words that he used were highly objectionable to the scientific communities. One, cure. What do you mean cure? And the traditional idea of cure is very complex, as you know. You have to heal the 7 auras before, after you have operation. All this, all this is not regarded as scientific. But the problem was that he was using the word cure. The second problem was he was using the word drug. Now, medicine, drug, and allopathy works on very different principles than Ayurveda. But I was just, following that debate that, there was this need for Ramdev to kind of make a dent in the scientific community and say that my product is as efficacious as any of your pills, which is a wrong premise. I feel it undermines both the scientific community as well as the, the traditional methods. And I increasingly feel that, what is the way out? I mean, because we are forever colliding, we're doing, trying to explain traditional in terms of science, and then trying to explain traditional in terms of sustainability, trying to explain and trying to, uplift its position. And it will just lead to, so I think maybe, I mean, I'm also still, working out what is the way forward. Maybe I think we should allow it to coexist with the scientific narrative and have its own status, its own, my son says to me, there is science and then there is mama science. So mama science has a validity, has logic, has rationale, so does science. And they sometimes are separate and they're saying opposite things. But how do you make them coexist I think our problem is that we try and convert people, and it's a power thing. It should not be a power thing. And you incorporate as much as you can coexist if you can. The younger generation, I feel, is much more receptive than our generation was, because we went through that scientific teaching. We are hardcore modernists at heart. Even if we, wear cotton clothes at times, we are hardcore modernists. And to shed that instrument which we use to build narratives, to pose as an expert, to disseminate information is very, very tough. I mean, it's embedded in everything we do and say. So, but of course, the challenge in front of you, and it's a very exciting challenge, and it's a very interesting challenge. How do you in Bikaneri mindset, Yang traditional mindset, Ayurvedic, whatever that logic is, how do you explain your friend having a different dal on different days?
Yeah.
What is the internal logic? Just I mean, even if you achieve that much, it's a big step forward. Okay, it's a story about dals. You can say it's a story about dals, whether you buy it. Everything is a story after all. It's a narrative, it's a story, I mean, some people see, modern scientific rituals as medieval witchcraft, so it's just... So I think we're not able to tell compelling stories about traditional wisdom, and I think you are very well placed to do that. I think you have the knowledge of language, you have access to traditional wisdom, you have people still in your Marathi community as well as through your thesis, you have access to it. So I think resist putting a gloss of modern science over it. I think it gets twice removed from understanding when you re-explain it in terms of... I mean, your thesis was fantastic. I mean, it was a long journey, and it's very rigorous and hardcore work, and it has a fantastic place. And I think you're now actually thinking of a postdoc occupation. What do you do next? And the next challenge is even harder if you're taking on, and therefore very enriching. I think it can be very enriching.
Yeah. Thanks, Vibhuti. Thanks for putting it and summing it up. Coexistence is one word that I have taken, and it really, I thought, why did it not strike me, the word coexistence? Coexistence is one good, very, it's a mutually benefiting and helps the entire community as well. But I think because if you know something, this exists, and suddenly after a while it gets lost, So then you feel, oh, it has been lost. But otherwise, for the other general public, it's the same thing, it is continuing. So I don't want this traditional knowledge to go into books or go into a museum as some documentary where people used to live like that. Used to live like that doesn't really help. So yes, it is a way forward. I think people should be more critical thinking has to improve so that they question and they adapt what is being taken up there. Thanks.
And maybe we also need better storytellers and a lot more storytellers of. So thank you.
I think people should visit places. Our study trips are an excellent opportunity for that, because when you listen something in the context of a place, like the Bikaner bhujia, it never tastes the way it tastes in Bikaner because of the water content, the salt water, the water that is from Bikaner. They are crispier and they are tasty because of that water, and you can taste it from any other place. And he made me open a Haldiram bhujia and make me taste and the Bikaji bhujia, which was native, and it really tastes different. But you don't realize it unless you have experienced and the story about that place. Thank you, Radha. Thank you for this proposition.
Thank you. No, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's come to attend this proposition. I'm just going to ask finally, although we are already at 10:15, are there any more questions? There are none. Oh, there are some more in the chat box. Okay, I think mostly thank yous. But all right. So thank you, Tanaya. Thank you, Vibhuti, for, as always, raising the level of the debate and leaving everyone with so much more. And thank you, everyone, for coming. And okay, see you in 2 weeks with our next proposition. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and your valuable feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Prashant. Thanks, Tanaya.
Thanks.